This time around on Sprudel Sessions, we are in the mangroves with the one and only Karen Storey, talking everything about mangroves, what we do, what you do. Let's get stuck in.
Welcome. Good to have you down here, right behind your forest that you've planted. So we're looking forward to the session with you today.
So how long have you guys been planting mangroves for?
From the Storey Group perspective, we've been doing this now for 6 years. But Major Ali Al-Suwaidi, who really took this reserve and transformed it, has been protecting this for about 20 years. But what we wanted to do was come in and give him a boost with corporate sponsorship to get as many mangroves planted as we could. So yeah, it's been a great journey. I mean, we came together about 4 months ago now to plant our forest, and the whole experience was great from start to finish with you guys, but also the educational bit with Major Ali, right? Yeah.
Do you see more corporates coming into this space through initiatives?
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, I think COP28 really put sustainability on the map for the UAE. Before that, it was a much harder sell.
Yeah.
After that, I think people have come down, they've experienced it, and now we're kind of inundated, which is fantastic. You know, with the UAE have committed 100 million mangroves, so we all have to play our part.
And you're not only doing mangroves, right? You're doing other species of trees elsewhere in the world.
Yeah, so we work with 15 NGOs around the world. And yeah, lots of different species, from smallholder farmers with fruit trees to mangroves. So it's kind of got to be the right tree in the right place at the right time. But yeah.
And there's a lot of tech infused. You're not just planting trees, you're actually using technology to showcase how much the plant or the tree is sequestering CO2.
Absolutely. And that was the game changer, to actually get corporates on board.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of corporates have planted forests and then didn't know what happened to the money.
Planted
Nobody knew where the trees were.
Yeah.
So by bringing in the EcoMatcher blockchain, we put every tree on the chain, and then people can see visibly, as well as coming down and having a look, they can actually visually see their trees globally. So it works really well. You know, people want to make a difference. They want to appreciate that the emissions that their business creates, you can't do everything. So planting trees is a good way to offset some of that impact that you have. It's very tangible, great for climate change. So yeah, we're finding big and small, you know, from smaller SMEs right the way up to the corporates. We give them an easy way to kind of come on board and make a difference.
It all starts here. Plant a tree. Well, that is a lot better being inside. It's quite warm out there.
It is.
So welcome again to the podcast. Not a podcast. First question, still or sparkling?
Sparkling, every time. See, we should have some Sprudel cups.
We should, but unfortunately I forgot them. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you very much. So, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you have ended up here in the mangrove forest.
Okay.
Top level.
Top level. So 27 years in the UAE. Very much most of that time was spent doing change management consulting, human capital consulting, and then
All the good stuff.
And then about 6 years ago, I thought, what is the legacy? Am I leaving this country better than I found it? Am I leaving the world better than I found it? So we pivoted from being that people consultancy to people, planet and prosperity. And the first project that we launched was the 1 billion tree planting initiative, which is why we're here, because this is one of our main, it was the first site that we launched around the world. So yeah.
And you recognized pretty early on, I imagine, similar to us, that dealing with corporates, the size of the impact is a lot greater than doing like B2C, for example, where you go to consumers.
Yeah. I mean, it's where the money will flow, and we can, we were all about volume. We've got 1 billion trees to get in the ground before 2030, which is a big ask. So we knew that we needed corporates that could kind of fuel that funding. Having said that, we do have a lot of community engagement programs going on now, because people want something different to do, something that is getting them out in nature and making an impact. So I'd love to see more B2C, because I think there's plenty of people in the community that want to come and help us do what we do.
But I guess you've got the baseline now through the corporate interaction with the corporate world. You've got that baseline now where you could then go out and say, okay, let's get the community down. Let's get
100%.
Yeah. The collaboration that we started, like we said outside, was 3 or 4 months ago. We planted 1,000 mangroves, 3.5 tons sequestered as of now. Do you feel that the SMEs have their space as well to get involved with this? Are you seeing an uptick in SMEs coming to you?
Yeah, we have. We have. I mean, we started kind of, in the very beginning to go out and work with some big players that we knew could get us, the voice out there, but also help us scale. But literally, I have companies with 4 or 5 people, right up to those multinationals and everything in between, to school kids that want to get their classmates together and plant a forest by doing activities. So we've got a real mix of partners, which is lovely. Yeah. Because I think, I always say every tree, every mangrove makes a difference. Yeah. So we've got to encourage everybody across our ecosystem.
Let's talk a little bit about mangroves. Why mangroves versus trees, like the CO2 capture? A little bit about that.
So, I mean, a couple of things. One is mangroves are fantastic because, they don't need water. Nature takes care of that. And as we know, water scarcity in this part of the world is a real issue from a water table point of view. From a coastal protection point of view, so they're fantastic in terms of erosion and protecting the coast. So they're in that inland between the sea and the beach, but also they're a fantastic nursery for young species of fish. So what you'll find is where you've got mangroves around the world, your fish stock is better because it acts as a kindergarten. But also they're fantastic for carbon, both above and below. And they sequester fantastic amounts of carbon over a 25-year kind of period of time. So in terms of lowering our carbon footprint and emissions as a city, I wish we had room for more because we could really do with more. But they're fantastic from all of those perspectives.
So we're now, like we said before, west of Palm Jebel Ali. Are you limited to the space that you have here because of on one side you've got the new power station, on the other side you've got the palm coming up? Are you physically sort of landlocked?
We are landlocked, but I don't know if you saw Sheikh Mohammed's launched a new initiative, which is just down the beach there, which will be for turtle restoration, protecting the turtle, because there's a lot of turtle nests along this beach. So the plan is to extend a little bit further down the coast, which is fantastic, because the alternative could have been another row of hotels. The fact that we're going to keep a bit of an open space for residents and tourists,
That's it. So what's your biggest challenge when you go to these corporates? What's the biggest challenge for you to actually get them on board to come in and purchase mangroves and do the whole educational thing? Are there big challenges?
Look, I think there can be. It's about making sure that we help them to understand their corporate social responsibility, as an entity living in this country, with the emissions and the unavoidable emissions that they have to do. I mean, even if they could take just 30% of that carbon footprint and then put that budget towards nature-based solutions, it means that they are giving back while offsetting. So the conversation I tend to have, depends on the organisation maturity, is you should be doing good. From a customer perspective, your customers expect you. They want brands to care about what they care about, and people care about climate change. They care about the world that we live in. So for companies, and this isn't from, and I'm pretty sure we're going to get onto this, this is not about greenwashing. This is about, are you doing the right thing to offset your emissions as a business? And also, are you doing the right thing for the community and the planet? Yeah. So the conversations are easier than they were when I first started 6 years ago. I think the community's really got behind it and they see the benefits of it. So, yeah, I'm optimistic that the conversations are definitely easier.
Yeah, I think it's a lot easier. I mean, we see that as well. 10 years ago, trying to tell somebody to drink tap water, essentially, was a difficult sell. It's easier now because the BBC documentaries came in and now you've got all these educational pieces which are freely available. We see it as well, so I get it. The thing that I always think about with these sort of initiatives is, like you said, greenwashing. Does it concern you?
Absolutely.
What are you doing as the Storey Group to try and understand if what they're doing is greenwashing, in fact?
So we can definitely spot somebody that is coming to us to try and go down that road. And from my point of view, and from the Storey Group's point of view, and our project's point of view, I would rather say to them, come back to us after you've tried to look at other ways of doing this. Because if on one side you are misleading your clients on what you're doing as a business, whether it's your product, your supply chain or whatever, and you're using our project to turn people's attention away from this and onto this, they're not really the partners that we want to work with. But we would love to go on that journey with them, and we've got partners that can help them to kind of make that shift. But yeah, it's real.
So we live in Dubai, obviously. We try to be at the forefront of all the technology coming in. Are you excited by the next 5 years within the UAE of the new technologies coming, what you've seen, talking to your network and things like that? Is it the place to be?
It's mind-blowing. And I think the great thing about being in the UAE is they can move fast. The inward investment that's coming in, they want to be a hub for innovation. And innovation around renewables, water security, food security, nature-based technologies, we need them all. And if we can attract them to this part of the world, which is a lot of the conversations that we're having, I think it can only be good for the region and for those innovators who need the support, the finance, the capital to be able to grow and take their products and innovations to the world.
And tell us a little bit more about the technology behind the mangroves. So when you physically plant, so you can come here and physically plant yourself, right?
You can.
And then what happens? You plant it and then?
So we work in two different ways. So as we worked with your team came down and your team planted 100 of your 1,000 themselves, which is always great because what we don't want to do is just, somebody sends us an order for 1,000 trees and they don't come down and physically see them. Sometimes that's not possible, but with you guys you did. So getting the team down here, actually getting their hands dirty, seeing the mangroves, seeing the environment, it's a fantastic start. But where we then kick in is we have 4 different tech stacks in partnership with EcoMatcher. So we have a tree coder app, and that's what our NGOs, farmers use around the world. So as soon as that tree goes in the ground, we capture the tree species, date of planting, the GPS location of that, the farmer who has planted it, the date, all of those kind of data analytics go up, and then we kind of put all that data up into the cloud. We use some cool machine learning to make sure that trees can only be captured once. Once they're verified, we then put them on the blockchain. So that gives us our one tree, one blockchain reference, so that when you receive your trees in your own forest dashboard, you know that every one of those is an individual tree. It hasn't been captured twice. There's no double counting. And then the cool thing is, once they're in our clients' accounts digitally, you can do cool stuff with them. You can give them to your employees. You can give them to your customers. You can share your impact with other people and track it and interact with it. You know, if you're bored, you can chat to your tree because you know we've got chatbot technology.
Not that I know.
So yeah.
So you said it was difficult. It was a difficult south 6 years ago.
Yeah.
To south these things. What is your personal motivation? What got you up every morning to actually go and get these guys on board?
I think I've always been a bit tenacious, and you know, I always say for people working in the UAE, patience, persistence, and presence. Yes. You've got to keep going back. You've got to keep knocking down those doors. When we started, we had zero support from government, so we weren't endorsed by government. I literally came, saw Major Ali here, said, Major Ali, this is what we're going to do. Let's start. Can I use this to help you to grow this amazing place? And, you know, he was one of my first supporters. But yeah, it was tough. But now, you know, even today, Ministry of Climate Change and Environment, Environment Agency, Abu Dhabi, large corporates, government entities are super supportive. And look, that takes time, but, you know, it means that we're serious. So I'm okay with that.
The government initiatives here versus, say, England, where you're from. What's the biggest difference, do you think? What could they learn from each other?
Okay, I think to be fair, once you do get government support here, it is unwavering. Yeah. Okay, but actually getting to that point takes a little bit longer because there weren't the regulatory frameworks or that public-private sector partnerships. That tend to be more infrastructure rather than the kind of projects that we were doing. So I think the UAE is a lot better now than it used to be. And once you've got that support, it's actually more free-flowing than probably European. So, you know, they both have things that they can learn from each other, but I'm positive that the UAE is on the right track. You know, it's embracing change and innovation in a way that it didn't before.
The COP28 was big for us as a company. Did it have a big impact for you guys as well?
Massive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the conversations or the actual of planting?
100%. So as soon as, we were planting way before even COP was announced that it was coming to the UAE. But as soon as COP was announced, our inquiries went up by 300%. From corporates who really felt that, okay, we don't have any narrative around sustainability, we need help. And whether that was from helping to educate their teams, working with their sustainability, because we don't just plant trees, we do some consultancy as well. So helping them to kind of shape what can they do as a business, internally, externally, and how can they get involved with us. So COP was a massive shift. I've seen a dip.
I was going to ask,
Which, again, is something that we've got to work really hard to keep
the momentum.
Keep the conversation at the momentum that the planet needs. It can't be just because we're hosting COP that people are doing the right thing. It has to be something that over the next decade, 20, we all play our part in, you know, kind of reducing the impact of what we've done over the last 20 years.
That was a concern for me as well. But I feel, especially in the corporate world, we're still getting the same level of inquiries for our water systems. One of which you have here, incidentally, which is where we get our nice thing. The
water, I have to say, and I've said this to you, since I started drinking this water, the sparkling water it's just fabulous. It is.
Stop it.
It is fabulous.
I'll give you your money later. So the future of sustainability in the UAE, obviously Ministry of Climate is there. They're really pushing post-COP as well as pre-COP. What do you see the direction or the next 5 years for the UAE for the sustainability, from a sustainability standpoint? How do you see that the government is going to push? I know they've got the plastic bag ban coming up. There's quite a lot of other plastics being banned.
Yes.
Do you see that momentum just carrying on in the future?
100%. So I think there'll be a huge push for to change behaviours from a resident perspective. So whether that is changing behaviour in terms of water consumption, recycling, getting rid of single-use plastic across the Emirates, all of these good moves, diverting textiles, plastics from landfill, and making circular economies out of those things. We're looking at projects like that as well. Economy. So that circularity is going to be key. Finding renewable energy sources that don't rely on massive amounts of solar. And thinking a little bit differently about how we do that would be good. And getting, I think what I'm finding really encouraging is the universities and the youth that are coming through are really being encouraged to kind of innovate, go into that sustainability-led career choice, because we need change makers that are going to reverse all of the damage that previous generations have done.
My generation.
So, yeah, I can only see it just gaining more and more momentum. And I think what I'm seeing as well is new developments are really being held to account for kind of, their green building standards. There's some fantastic innovations going in. So
if a company or a corporate entity wants to go down the route of planting mangroves, how do they reach out to you? What's the general process that you go through as a consulting company as well as a planting company?
Okay, so we would typically, if we can, face-to-face meeting. I know that during COVID we all got so used to being on Zoom, but I do like face-to-face meetings. So where we can, we'll get down and meet with them, get to know the team, get to understand their broader sustainability strategy, where we fit in. How they want to communicate the initiative, making sure that we're not going down the route that we just talked about. This is not about greenwashing, this is about impact. And then we would typically say, okay, how do you want to start? I mean, for us, a forest is 1,000 trees. But we've got people that plant much more than that. But I'm happy to start as small as they can cope with from a budget point of view, and then we get planting, and if we can and summer allows, we get them down here to see their forests, and we get going. And then it's about making sure that we keep that momentum, getting them to think about cool projects where, for instance, you get a new joiner in the company, instead of giving them a plastic pen, it's welcome to the company forest, here's a tree. So helping them to think about the deployment of that impact after they've done it is typically the way it goes. And then we also like to collaborate. So, again, with people like yourselves, if I'm in having a conversation about sustainability and they've got plastic bottles on their conference room table, I'll talk about you. Or I'll talk about our paper in the rocks notebooks or whatever. Yeah. So I think there's lots of conversations to be had. And that's how we typically like to work.
Talking of that, I find in general SMEs over here very disconnected and not willing to go down the collaborative route. I think we've had this conversation as well before.
Yeah.
The fragmentation, especially in SMEs, especially in my industry. I mean, no one talks to each other. Do you think that there's a way to focus everyone's mind on the actual problem, instead of traditionally it's everyone's coming here to make money, right? And then they go back to wherever they came from. I think that mindset, especially post-COP as well, is changing. So you're all for the collaboration.
Absolutely.
That's the only way forward, right?
It's the only way we're going to get this done. And, why wouldn't we? Having a conversation to help your fellow SMEs or people in this space to do more at speed is how those conversations happen. Yeah. So for me, I think there's a lot more that we can do. I know that there's the SME hub that's been kind of set up with a lot of sustainability-driven SMEs. But again, it's lots of conversations, but actually getting the deployment of the solutions collectively out there isn't happening the way that it could. So I think there's a lot more we can do, but we all need to, roll our sleeves up and be open to that kind of conversation, which sometimes is hard, and I get it, because SMEs, from an economic point of view, it can be tough. Getting the money in, driving your revenue, some of them, they will be so focused on their own revenue stream, and I get that, because keep the lights on, keep the team employed. But I think by bringing some together, the economies of scale, the shared services model for SMEs could be a really good way to change that part of the economy. But let's, we're open to that. We're already doing that. You and I will, I'm happy to go out with my Sprudel hat on every day of the week, because it makes sense to do it.
I just need a T-shirt.
Yeah.
There we go. What else can we do? So where do people go to get in contact with you? What's the details for that? How do companies get involved?
You can come to the Story Group. So thestorygroup.com, which is our main kind of website for sure. And reach out to us about our trees, our consulting. We've got some really cool new projects coming up. So yeah, I mean, we'd love to have a conversation with anybody who wants to make a difference and change the world a little bit for the better.
Well, it has been an absolute pleasure. For the past 3 or 4 months, we've been working very closely together, and I appreciate everything you do.
Thank you.
And you're doing something excellent here. I urge anybody to get in touch with you. So thank you very much for sitting down with us.
It's an absolute pleasure, Shawn.
And have a nice day.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you.